listening to the Savvy Musician Show with Leah McHenry, and this is your secret weapon for success in the new music industry.
Welcome once again to the Savvy Musician Show, the podcast for your music marketing. This is CJ Ortiz, and I'm the branding and mindset coach at the Savvy Musician Academy, and joined once again by Her Eminence, the lovely Leah McHenry. How you doing, Leah?
I'm doing fantastic.
Always a pleasure to do cool stuff like this and help musicians. We just did our last episode was, I really enjoyed, Leah, because we pulled the veil back, I think, on the true, not just what you do exactly, but really what digital marketing is. And if somebody wanted to really maximize whatever they're in, not just music, but I mean anything, that is an incredible podcast for them to listen to. So we're going to get into a different dimension of that by talking about your story today. But once again, ladies and gentlemen, you can be a huge blessing to us if you would be sure and rate and review this podcast, whatever player you're listening on, whatever review options they give. Please give some stars, leave a positive review. We do read these things. In fact, we share them in our team meetings.
We do.
Right? We read all the reviews from the podcast as a part of our team meeting. So whatever it is you write will get heard, good or bad.
Yep, good, bad, or ugly.
Good, bad, or ugly. So be sure and do that. We certainly appreciate that. Well, before we get into Leah's story, let me just share a student spotlight. This is one of our elite members, Justine, and she writes, #win. Our second album is sold out with 1,000 physical copies. And she says, Leah methods do work and people still buy CDs. Isn't that amazing?
Look at that.
And you're selling vinyl too, Leah, and we've done episodes on this as well. People will still buy physical products. And as we said in our last episode, having some of the instruction that you give on Shopify helps to facilitate these type of sales. And again, go back and listen to episode 61 to hear more about that. But good for you, Justine. That's a great win.
Yeah, fantastic.
Great testimony that the principles do work.
Yeah, we're proud of you. Love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Now, Leah, this is something that I think you've told in different formats and in different ways, but being in the position that I'm in now and having to sort of answer for you sometimes and respond to people, on behalf of you or on behalf of SMA, I see where I think people are not as familiar with, we think they are, because I'm sure you've told the story so many times that you think everybody, but really so many people have not, because so many people, again, are still baffled at your success. They're still baffled at your results. So typically when somebody is that way, they tend to question the origins. They tend to question, right, the starting point. So that's why sometimes you hear marketers often say, oh, I was broke and sleeping on my mom's couch and unemployed, and then I did this and achieved success. They almost have to keep saying that because people just can't believe that you went from where you say you were to where you are now.
Yeah.
Now, the short of it is, here's a stay-at-home mom with, at the time, 4 kids, and, you were in literal dire straits. So paint a picture for us. I mean, where were you guys? This is back in what, 2010, 11?
Yeah, way back then. And I wanted to share this too, because I actually get a lot of these questions, even from our elite students, the people who know me. They want to know, well, how did I get my very first beginning? What did I actually do? So I thought, everybody can benefit from that story. So yeah, well, we were a single income household. We got married young. So my husband, Steve, he had a construction business. That's just kind of what he did his whole life. And so that was his trade. And of course, I've been a songwriter all through my, all my life, as long as I can remember, I was singing, but really writing like intense songs when I was like 13, 14 and up. And we ended up getting married and settled down. Now I had a band at the time and everything, but shortly after we started a family, and I didn't expect it to happen so fast, but it did. and I'm very fertile. But if you haven't noticed, I have 5 kids.
Thank you
So
for that.
yeah.
TMI, Leah. TMI, Leah.
So anyway, started a family young, and then I had a band, like I said, then I was having kids. So then the band obviously stopped, and my desire for music never did. And, and I was still, 9 months pregnant, writing songs and the piano. Like that was just, so then I had about 3 little ones, and I was still totally writing songs whenever I could. This is like my outlet. When I wasn't reading books or vacuuming crushed Cheerios out of car seats, I was writing music. And that dream it didn't die. I really didn't think that I had no idea that I would be where I am right now. Not talking about SMA, just music career alone. I never dreamt that I would have a thriving music career that is like self-funded and like doing, working with the people that I get to, like the guest musicians that I get to have, that I can almost like contact anybody I want. And if they agree, if they're available, like I get them to play on my album. And because I've worked up to that point where I can afford them, and I've created a little bit of a name for myself in my little tiny niche. And so, that takes time to build that up. I had no idea I would ever be sitting here talking about this, or that this would even be my reality. Because back then, back in 2010, Napster was still making its waves, and like nobody knew. You think it's the Wild West now. 2010, that's almost 10 years ago. That was really, truly the Wild West. Like the whole paradigm of the music industry was thrown for a loop. The table had been flipped over, and nobody knew what to do themselves. The labels, like everybody was freaking out. The labels they really were hurt by the Napster scenario. What happened, just all this new peer-to-peer file sharing. And artists were hurt, and nobody knew how digital marketing and e-commerce, like nobody's really doing much of that back then. So I think Amazon was around, but like, did it even look like? I don't even know. 10 years ago. But especially the music industry, this was like the end. This was like the apocalypse of the music industry. So I'm in that, I guess, in that period of time, still writing my songs and still hoping that someone would discover me. So, and by that, I mean, I would go into the studio and I would write songs. I'd have friends I would write songs with. I'd go to their studios, write songs with them. And we would send off packages to labels. And I would hope that I would get a response. And even back then, I didn't even have my micro niche dialed in. I just really had something unique going on in my own style. And nobody knew what to do with me, ever. No one ever knew what to do, or we just wouldn't get any responses. So I did the old school, like send in a press kit style with like a CD and photos printed out and like the whole thing. Not mentioning anything about me having 3 little kids at home or anything. But I just did that old school style approach. And that was obviously discouraging. Like I was always like hopeful. I'm a glass half full kind of person, I think, naturally. And it was just discouraging, but I kept writing music. And so I think the point is that I didn't let the dream die. It was still there in me. And I just knew that if I'm going to be, well, even just like sane as a person, like some moms will go out for like a mom's night or something, or maybe they go out to the bar with their friends, or I would go to the studio and I would be writing music. So I was already, picking and choosing how I would spend my time then. And so that's what I would do. And then from there, 2008 to 2012 was like the birth of like artist profile sites. It's like SoundCloud and Reverb Nation. And there was a bazillion little like songwriting contest sites and sites sponsored by radio shows and organizations and stuff, where you could upload a photo, a bio, your featured songs, and there would even be like little rankings. I can't remember the name of this one. It was like the 61 or something like that. And I remember uploading like crappy demos on this site or some site out there, and hoping that like someone would just hear the potential in my music, because it was not professionally, or at least some of it was not professionally done. And, just nothing ever came of this stuff, ever. Nothing. I mean, I got some like random listeners, but I mean, like it never went anywhere. And then I tried, licensing sites like these licensing libraries or things like Taxi, where you pay a fee and they say that they're going to submit your songs to, music executives and, film executives and all these music supervisors and such. And 99% of the time, you're never going to hear anything back. So, wasting money there. I could list a paragraph of the different things that I tried on the internet that were designed for musicians, like all the different Bandzoogle type stuff out there. I'm always leery of anything that was designed for musicians because on the internet, even today, even though it's a lot slicker than it used to be. So yeah, that was really like what I was trying to do. And then 2010, I started recording a real album. That was my first real record that I released called Of Earth and Angels. And I did it with a friend, and it was, that was my real shot. That was my first big release. And, it took me 2 years to create that. So if anybody thinks I was some kind of overnight success, that is not true. Yeah, 10 years in the making.
Right.
It took me 2 years to create it. And again, I was doing it on weekends, I was writing during nap times and recording on weekends. And so I'd go out for the day, record, drive home. And that was my thing. That was like my one outlet. And then I never thought past that. I never thought about what happens after I release it. Like, what are we going to do? Like, I didn't even do a press release, I don't think. Or the artist development company I was working with, apparently they did those, but we talked about artist development companies in a different episode. Don't go there now.
Right.
But needless to say, we did not really have a good marketing plan. So my marketing plan was upload it to YouTube and see what happens. So I uploaded each individual song to YouTube and hoped that would do something. I mean, now I at least have some like really great sounding stuff. Maybe I'll, get discovered and someone will stumble upon it. Some A&R, some label will stumble upon it. And that never happened. 6 months went by and really I had zero traction at all. I think I still had 11 fans on my Facebook page and half of them were my relatives. So that was my beginning, guys. I mean, I had no connections. I didn't know anybody. I can't really name drop for you. You're not going to hear me name dropping because I don't like it to begin with. And second of all, I don't really know that many people even now. So no connections, no knowledge of the music business, no knowledge of internet marketing. That's for sure. Really the ultimate starting at ground zero.
And the whole time this is not like you were kicking around doing this stuff in luxury and ease because your husband was making so much money that it afforded you the time to go. You guys were in financial straits.
Oh yeah. Hence why it also took me 2 years to make the album, right? It was, and I had help too. Like I said, I made the album with a friend and that really made a huge difference. So, no, there was no money for, absolutely no extra money for anything like even press releases or extra anything. And so after I'd released that album, we really were struggling financially, like as all families do, but the economy got really tough where we were in the area we lived. And my husband was struggling with finding work. And at that point, I started to really think hard about my music and what the potential could be if I figured some things out with it. I was I was starting to feel a little desperate myself. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm really unemployable at this point. I've been out of the market, the workplace, the workforce for a really long time. I haven't gained any skills. I don't have much to offer. I would get a minimum wage job is what I would get. So I was trying to think about what could I do with my talents. All I have is an album. I think I had an album and an EP. That's as far as I'd gotten. And I figured that if I could somehow raise my skill level a bit to the point where I could make a bit more money, well, maybe there's something there. And it wasn't until I came across, the famous article now by a guy named Kevin Kelly. I've never even read anything else by this guy, by the way, so I have no idea if his other works are good. But he wrote an article years ago called 1000 True Fans. A lot of people know about it. And it's a very simple concept. Up until this point, I was studying I was reading all the articles on Reverb Nation and Bandzoogle and all the different sites that were trying to help artists make money. And none of them got me anywhere. And it wasn't until I stumbled upon this article by this guy that I had a real light bulb moment. And the premise of the article is that if you just have 1,000 true fans, so you don't need millions or tens of thousands or even, you don't even need 10,000. You just had 1,000 true fans who spend $100 a year from you. That's really easy math. You can live a pretty comfortable life. That's $100,000 a year. Or if you could break it up different ways, right? If you had 2,000 fans who spent $50, or you break it up different ways. But the point is a very small group of people who are committed to you and who are real super fans, true fans, not people who like your Facebook page and then keep scrolling, people who are so excited that you're creating something. If you could get those people and convince them to spend X amount of dollars with you per year, you could live a comfortable life off of that. And so, stop trying to be really world famous and just try to make your goal 1,000 true fans. And I was like, now that is something I can grab a hold of. That is within arm's reach there, because 1,000 is really not that much. And so from there, I really had a switch in my brain that happened. It was not a gradual thing. It was it flipped. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been trying to, all these other methods I've been trying. The artist profile sites, the licensing sites, these songwriting contests, it puts my destiny and my fate in somebody else's hands where they're saying yes or no to it. Whereas this model of getting 1,000 true fans to pay me is a direct to fan. It's artist to fan. There's nobody in the middle. And so if I create something, whether it's a fan club or just music or merchandise or something, that they would pay that, what would that do for my family? And so I got to work. And so by this point, I've been doing enough groundwork that I had started getting a few fans. I'd started to build a bit of a brand for myself just off that one main album. And two things happened. Number one, I launched my first big crowdfunding campaign. That was one huge thing that I did to create a next album. And the second thing I did was I launched a fan club. But before I did that, I surveyed my fans. I didn't even know that surveying was that valuable. It just seemed like a logical thing. I don't really know what you guys would pay me for. So can you please tell me what you would pay me for? Mm-hmm. And so I sent out a survey, and I had already been building a bit of an email list. I don't know even where I got that. Again, it wouldn't have been from the music industry. I'd probably already started studying some online marketing stuff for me to even get to that point. So, and I may have sent it out maybe on my Facebook page, but again, I did not have that many people on my list. So I started surveying them and getting specific answers. I was asking if I were to start a fan club, what kind of things would you like from me? And this was before Patreon was really a big deal. And they started telling me, oh, we'd like this, we'd like that. And then I also asked, how much would that be worth to you? And I wanted dollar figures, and they gave me dollar figures, and they were all over the map. They were everything from $5, $1 to $1,000. People were all over. I was like, holy moly, this was so unexpected. And I didn't know really even what to do with that information. It was just whoa, not the ballparks are everywhere. How do I assimilate this data and then make decisions off of that? So that was the big, that was the big hard part there. But let me tell you something. I launched that fan club, and, I think I've mentioned this in another podcast episode, but, we were at the point where, the Canadian government was advising us to file bankruptcy because our taxes, we got so behind on taxes as a single income family. And because he was self-employed, that put us in a whole different tax bracket. And the Canadian government is so brutal with taxation that we're at the point where it's well, should we buy groceries or save for taxes. Well, we're going to feed our family, so that's what we're going to do. And we just got behind, and that adds up real quick. When you have business expenses and you have contractors and you have other things going on, like, that builds up real fast. So, we had a good chunk of debt hanging over our heads. And to get that call was devastating to me because we had already been struggling so bad. And I was already feeling kind of desperate. And then to get that call, I was just, there was an anger that welled up in me about it. I was pretty raging mad about it. But what I did was I funneled that rage into productivity, and I funneled it into action, and I funneled it into making some money is what I did. And so that's what I think, that's a good place for anger. That's where it should go. If you ever find yourself in that position, it could be very destructive or it can be constructive, I think, depending on where you direct it. So don't direct it at people, direct it at a project or something, because you can actually do a lot. It's like gas in the tank or something. And so I launched that fan club, and I'm not kidding, within 2 weeks, we were able to pay off that debt. Wow. That was gone, paid off completely. Wow. And I was like, I can't believe that just happened. What? And so, I didn't go out and spend the money and do this, that, not even on my music. I pay, it was there to help my family. So, if any of my fans ever listen to this, you can know, I can't even thank you enough for believing in me at that point as this unknown underground artist, that you would support me in that way, buy my album or buy a membership to my fan club. That changed lives. You affected my children in a positive way. And I can never show enough gratitude for that. So, and I'll never forget that feeling of what it's like to be there. No matter how successful I ever become, I will never forget that feeling. I think God allowed us to go through that for a very good reason. So yeah, that really, there's other details and parts of this story, and I don't know how long you want this to go, but.
Well, I think what it does is, what I appreciate about it, and again, when you compare it to our last episode, it just really shows the unique, almost providential path that you were on. So much of what you just mentioned, for example, was intuitive, instinctive. You didn't necessarily, know that you were supposed to do the survey. Yeah. So you were operating on what you felt like was the most, would bring the kind of results, using the stuff that you knew about, the software and things like, these fan clubs, and you were still able to produce results. Well, that's going to create tremendous incentive then for you to then launch it into a whole other season, because for now we're just talking about you moving some product. You put out this album, you're very proud of it, but you're just using this right now to pay some bills. And when does the coin drop for you, Leah, where you're like, okay, I have to start really learning more about the marketing, because I've obviously produced some results. So when did that light go off for you?
It was all this crowdfunding stuff that I did. And you know what? My timeline of events is, I think so much happened that I probably am even getting it mixed up and which thing happened first and next, because it was such a blur of between this stress, life stress and financial stress, and then all these exciting things happening and me really making an effort that I probably am getting everything mixed up at some point here. So don't quote me on it too much, because if I were to go back and look at my memories from 5 years ago, I'll go, oh, wait a minute, that was there. But when the crowdfunding thing happened, my first big crowdfunding campaign, which I $25,000, and it was an all or nothing campaign. It was either I would raise all of it or I'm not doing this, because I know I budgeted it out how much it would cost, and especially for me to work with people in Europe and with the exchange rates and things like that, it was going to be really expensive. And to work with the producer I wanted and blah, blah, blah. That was a life-changing experience for me as well, because I also, I was trying to raise 25,000. I raised 27,700 or something. And all without Facebook ads or paid traffic, or I did that with just an email list and social media. That was it.
Wow.
And I got some free press out of it and stuff, because by that point I had become enough of an up and coming underground artist that I got a few interviews out of it. I got a record deal offer, which I didn't take, or at least I was starting to get some interest due to this little buzz that I was creating. And So then I was like, after that crowdfunding campaign, like, I mean, I was so floored. I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't even believe it. I felt like before I started it, like I was waiting for permission or something to do it. And I just thought, yeah, I'm just going to do it and have a little faith. It was a big step in faith for me to do that. And it all worked out. But after that, I realized like, I just crossed into a different territory after that campaign. I have more responsibility because, well, it's a big deal to fulfill all those perks and those orders that went through. So there's a lot of logistic stuff. And I was like, oh, I have, suddenly you do feel like a business, I think, when you've had all these transactions that just happened. Right? It was like it is an album launch, a crowdfunding campaign for an album, whether you've already completed it or you haven't started yet, that's an album launch in itself. So you're really launching it twice. If then you have the physical album, then you're doing the actual launch. There's multiple launches happening. So like you said, some of it was intuitive for me, and I don't even know where that came from because I never studied marketing my entire life, but it was there. And yeah, I think it was just from that point on, it was like, okay, it's time for me to get serious here. And I think if I really, really want to up my game and make, do the 100,000 again, I need a plan. I need to understand more about what scaling means and like systems and software and things like copywriting, things like brand. Like I inherently had some of those things in place without it being I hadn't really worked hard on it yet. I was still trying to find my identity a little bit, especially after my first album, still trying to find my identity. But yeah, I think it's so many events. It's hard to really say there was like one moment. I just know that at that point, when I launched that crowdfunding and I saw that money was being raised and it's coming, it was like, okay, I need to level up here because these people believe in me. I need to believe in myself too. And I think I can go much further with this. This is like, in a way, in the marketing world, they talk about the MVP, the minimum viable product, or did I say that right? MVP. Yeah, minimum viable product. And for me, like those first couple albums were like the MVP. I was like, does anybody like this? Is anybody gonna listen to me? I don't really know. I mean, I'm doing it for me, but if people do like it and I've validated the music, this niche, I've validated this market, I think I can go bigger. And what do I need to do that? So yeah, all of this stuff, guys, I'm just trying to recall because so much happened and so much has happened. Like if you ask me what goes on in one of my weeks right now, it's a blur because so much is happening in my week and so many people and the kids and stuff going on. So, if I sound a little fuzzy and foggy, it's because there has been so much.
So sure there has. And I think, again, what is important is that people understand that you weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Your success was not overnight. It isn't some mystery. It cost you dearly. It took a lot out of you. You had to do this. I mean, it's one thing for me to say it. I'm a guy. I don't have these small children that I have to, tend to, et cetera, et cetera. So, you had all of this against you. You had finance against you. But through it all, and of course, and you're in like this remote area out in British Columbia, right? So all you've got is this internet connection. You've got your ability, obviously your art, but then all you've got is an internet connection. So your opportunities were limited to the internet. So you weren't going to be able to consider touring. You weren't going to be able to consider all these things. And so so necessity is the mother of invention, right? And
that's right.
And you had to come up with it during the Wild West days. 2010, 2011. I mean, we weren't even talking about the Facebook algorithm at that time. We had business pages. We had Facebook groups coming on the scene, but we didn't have what Facebook would eventually become as a marketing tool. I don't even think it was publicly traded at the time. So you're talking about it was still the college dorm business.
Yeah.
At that time. So you were using like the fan club. You don't use the fan club anymore necessarily, but you were using what was available at that time.
That's right.
Using your street smarts, your smarticles, as they say, and you did what you could to carve something out of it. And then once you saw the success, particularly of the crowdfunding campaign, you said, okay, I've got to get serious now. And you started to invest obviously more of your time in learning more dedicated, proper, systematic, comprehensive marketing systems. Now, that must have been, because you didn't know, you're like a lot of students listening to us, or a lot of people listening to us. They don't necessarily know what's right or what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They just listen to whatever guru shows up on their news feed. And if this person says marketing on YouTube is right, then that must be what's cutting edge. If this person says Facebook ads, then that must be what's cutting edge, or Spotify, or this or that. So they don't know how to discern what the right voice is. And again, go back to our last episode in the podcast to check out more about that. But you had to navigate that, right? That took you time, that took you money. All to say is, this is the price that someone has to be willing to pay, but your story does not have to be like Leah's.
No.
You can get there faster.
Yeah.
You can get there easier because she's already paid the price. She's already gone before you. She's already made the mistakes. She's already spent the money. I mean, I'm a part of the Savvy Musician team, so I see a lot and hear a lot of what gets spent, for example, just on Facebook advertising. Trust me, guys, you guys would choke at the amount of money they spend testing ads and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the proving process, Leah, that you go through. And it's still that very same person who got started there, that in raw form. That's the one who's at the helm today. It's just much, much more sophisticated now, much, much more streamlined, a whole lot more people involved, a lot of moving parts in this thing, but it's still basically that same thing because, I'm only seeing you on a screen here, but I know if I could go into that screen and turn the corner out of the office that you're in, I'm going to find those very same kids, and I'm going to find that very same husband and the very same needs that were there back then. That stuff never goes away, with the success. But what's important here is that no matter where anybody is, and you'll tell them this, they can achieve that very same thing if they're willing
That's right.
to pay that price.
And I will say that one of the critical keys to the success that I had in snowballing once I had kind of validated my music a bit, the first thing I did when I made money, like those first royalty payments I ever saw show up in my TuneCore account, guess where I spent that? Well, aside from helping out with groceries and gas and food and diapers and stuff, my money went into marketing courses. That's where it went. And so, it didn't even go to my music. It went to my knowledge and my education and learning from people that I thought I could really trust, that knew more than I did. And that's really when things snowballed for me. Like, I'm sharing my story of like sequence of events of, what my career was like. I'm sorry if that was boring to you, but if I could just help you understand that all of the success I've had since I validated my music is due to investing into myself. And it was uncomfortable. It hurt to put that money there, especially being in the situation we were in, where it felt do or die. It was like, I have to make this work because I just paid $2,000 for this marketing course. And that means I better squeeze out every drop that I can out of this because I have to find a way to make that back. And so I know what it's like. I know how scary it is to sometimes invest in a program or coaching or something, especially when you're feeling like a bit desperate. But just know that this is not a sales tactic, by the way. This is not even what I'm trying to tell you about, like, oh, you should invest with me. I'm just know from experience, I know the feeling in my body when I think about that. It was really scary. And I think that it should be. If you're not scared about it, there might be not something quite right with you.
Right.
It should be scary. It should make you nervous. It should hurt a bit because you have to have skin in the game.
Right.
If you don't have that skin in the game, you're not really committed. And I'll tell you, like I've said this, and I'm very honest about this. Anytime we've ever given, I won't say every time, but let's just say 95% of the time, what we've ever given out free content or like a scholarship, that kind of thing, most of the time, most people do not do anything with free stuff or a free pass or a free ticket. It didn't hurt them enough. It didn't hurt them to be there. So then why would they try very hard? Right. It's just, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just human nature. It's how we're wired. So I just wanted to throw that in there, that I too have been in that position where it was scary and it hurt to invest in myself, but it was the best. Oh, can I tell you the ROI that I've received since then?
Yeah.
It's been like, you wouldn't even believe, like the ROI in my music career. And then to apply some of those same skills and principles to create Savvy Musician Academy. Maybe there's an academy inside of you, right, and you don't even know that it's there yet because you're too scared to even invest in yourself. Like, this is where the rubber meets the road and where lives are changed, is when you're willing to put skin in the game and find out what you're really made of. I mean, I had no idea I'd be sitting here talking to you, you know, as a multiple six-figure recording artist and coach of Savvy Musician Academy, helping tens of thousands of people. Like, this is still surreal. Somebody pinch me.
And you had no idea you'd be sitting here talking to me.
No. And that's another pinch me moment. Wow, CJ's on the podcast. What?
Well, she means that when she says she's not making some sort of sales pitch to you. Now, me, on the other hand, I will certainly take advantage of that because, and you've said this before, we're all marketers, Leah. We're all salespeople. People who will tell you they can't sell, just ask them about their kids, or ask them about something a hobby they're passionate about, a food that they love.
The movie they saw.
Movie they saw. They will pitch it like a old school snake oil salesman. So everybody is a marketer to some degree. But our objective here is to get you to the place where you're able to take advantage of the thing that you're most passionate about, which is your career in music. And so I do want you to go to the next level. We got all sorts of listeners. We have people in our elite group, Leah, that are listening. We have people in your student group that have taken something like the Online Musician. And there's others who haven't taken anything, not one of your courses. They just listened to the podcast. Everybody can do something today. Yeah. Everybody. I want to challenge every listener to do something. So if you're in the elite group and you're listening, I want you to sign up for the Savvy Musician Inner Circle newsletter. Now, everybody can sign up for this. Anybody can do that. It's $19.99 a month. It is the Insider Music Marketing. It's from this team. We're giving you the latest up-to-date information on what's happening in music marketing, social media. We give you tools, software to use, tips that you can implement. We give you mindset, motivational stuff. You get one issue per month. You need to sign up for that today. Maybe, you haven't taken the Online Musician. That is something you need to sign up for. There's a great deal right now that you can get with the Online Musician. If you get the Online Musician 2.0, you will get the free upgrade to version 3.0, which will be coming out soon. All the information will be in the show notes to get to these. And if you have taken the Online Musician before and you've been kicking around for the longest time to become a part of the Superfan System Elite program, that's where I coach in. It really is elite, really is elite. I want you to book a call today with us. Let us talk to you and see if it's a good fit for you. It's not necessarily going to be a good fit. You may not be ready. We don't take everybody, guys. Okay, this is not about the money. It has to be a good fit. There's some people we don't want necessarily in the program. They don't have the attitude for it.
Yeah.
The music's not quite there yet. Maybe they'll be ready in a year from now or 2 years from now. But for somebody you've been working at this, you've got great music, you have a website, you've been trying to build your Facebook following up, you've gotten great feedback, the Elite program is going to be the perfect fit for you. So book that call today. I want you to go to callsma.com. That's callsma.com. But everybody can do something. You can all sign up for the Savvy Musician Inner Circle. Some of you need to get the Online Musician, and some of you guys need to sign up for Elite, because otherwise, what are we doing here? What good is it to sit around and just all podcast about all these things if the needle isn't being moved and your music isn't getting out into the world and you're able to be this independent artist that you've always dreamed of? It's possible, guys. It's possible, and you could start on that today. If you're not chicken, right? And you're willing to invest in you. That's what I call sacrifice. Give yourself for yourself, because that's what it's going to take. But you can do it. We're here to help. Again, leave a review. Give us some stars on whatever you're listening on. We appreciate that. Leah, always a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me share my story and listening, guys.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
This episode was sponsored by the Superfan System Elite program here at Savvy Musician Academy. If you are looking to scale your existing music business and you're looking to get into advanced digital marketing, such as email marketing, funnels, e-commerce, Facebook ads, and more, and you're looking to build a real profitable online music business, book a call with our team at www.callsma.com. We would love to speak with you for about 30 minutes and see how we can help you. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more episodes, and we'll see you next time.